I am live. I am here, and I am going to answer any questions that people might have today about presenting with visuals. And for those of you who are watching, hopefully there's somebody watching right now. And if you're not, then maybe you'll be watching this later. But I'm Meridith, and I am your public speaking go-to. And I am incredibly passionate about helping people look better and sound better as presenters. I want people to feel confident, and I want them to really shine as speakers. So I will be here for the next 30 minutes. And if you are watching right now, and I'm live streaming via LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook. So if you do have questions about how to use visuals in a presentation, please go ahead and leave those questions right now in the comments, and I'd be happy to discuss that with you. Now, visuals can be really quite tricky when it comes to presenting, because I don't know about you, but oftentimes I see presentations where there are too many visuals, they're not intentional enough, or the visuals themselves are incredibly busy. And I know we have heard over and over again, death by PowerPoint. That is a term coined because most people, I would imagine, have been overwhelmed by the amount of text on a slide. Lots of bullet points, lots of data points, very busy, hard to connect to the slide. And oftentimes those slides are competing with what the person is saying. So what is important is this. I'm going to just give a framework, a simple framework for thinking about your visuals. The first thing that you should be even thinking about before putting your presentation together is first identifying who your audience is. That should come before any visuals are even thought of. And oftentimes I know a lot of you are receiving a deck. Maybe it's a deck that you did not put together. Perhaps you received that from your boss or another company who wants you to help promote their product or service. But regardless, you should always start with your audience first and do a deep dive investigation for who those people are going to be in your audience. Take some time doing that so that you're really figuring out how you're going to best serve them, because that's really what this is all about. Once you've established who that audience is, then it's important for you to establish what your end in mind is and what your objective is for that particular audience and all of those pain points that you have discovered through your investigation. And then from there, you want to figure out what those key takeaways are that are going to lead to that end in mind and that objective. A lot of people can only retain 3 to 5 key takeaways. So these are the building blocks that are going to get you to your objective, and identify what those are. Once you've identified all these things, now is the time to look at the visuals and ask the question first, do I even need visuals for this particular type of audience and for this particular message that I am going to be sharing with them? Because I don't think that every single presentation or talk needs or warrants visuals. Now, however, if it does, and you feel that visuals are going to definitely enhance and support your message, then take a look at that end in mind. Take a look at those key takeaways and ask yourself, what's best going to support these key takeaways and getting my message incredibly clear. Then once you do that, then you can start to build those visuals for yourself or have somebody help you build those visuals for you. And when you do, keep them simple. And simple can sometimes be hard. So in that process, allow yourself to get a little messy, explore, brainstorm, throw some ideas out to other people, see what works. And that way, thank you, Tina, I appreciate that. Then you want to make sure that you show those visuals to another person to make sure it is enhancing and supporting your message and not taking away from it. Now, let's say you have very technical slides. Let's say you have a product that you're developing, or perhaps you're a scientist of sorts and you have a lot of information and data that you need to relay to your peers or perhaps to potential clients or customers. Here's what I would say about that. Look at each slide and ask yourself, what from this particular slide does my audience absolutely need to know? So that way you're identifying the key takeaway that you're going to pull out of that slide so that you're not getting too in the weeds with all the technicalities. Often I hear, but they need to hear all of those things, Meridith, and I get that. However, there are other ways that we can communicate the information, all those details to our audience that are not necessarily in that 30 to 45 minutes that we get to spend with them. So think about how else are you sharing this information with them? Is it necessarily you sharing that deck with them afterwards? If you're giving a good presentation where you're leaving them wanting more, I don't think you're going to want to give them the deck. I think you're going to want to have a separate document perhaps that you can then share with them to get them all of that juicy information that you feel that they need. But for the presentation, we're there just to give them a basic overview, to give them enough information to where we want to leave them curious and going out and doing further research for themselves, or we've given them enough information to where they're curious enough and want to have further conversations with you. It's not laying out the whole entire kitchen sink or giving them the entire enchilada. We want to leave our audiences wanting more. Now let's look at those data heavy slides. Sometimes I've got clients who cannot change anything. They can't change their data heavy slides. They can't simplify the data. They need to deliver what is given to them. Great, that's fine. So how do you do that? Once you've identified, like I said prior, that one is need to know, make sure that that's what you're communicating. And then when they see that slide, try not to compete with that slide. Tell them where to look. Once that slide comes up and there is a data point that you need them to look at, orient your audience to look in that very location. You need to use words in order to do this. And what I mean by that, and you're probably like, yes, Meredith, I get that, is you need to direct them explicitly by saying, in the upper left-hand corner, I would like to direct your attention to, or please look at the statistic in green in the center of the slide. Once you've established that, then you can guide them to where you need them to look next, and then moving on to the next slide. Perhaps you want to set them up for what they're about to see on that next slide. So when it does appear, they already know what they're going to be looking at. And if it's a lot of information that they're going to be looking at, pause. Let them take it in. Do not compete with the slide. Don't try to be speaking and while they're reading at the same time, because not many people can retain both simultaneously. There are a very select few in this world that I know who can do that. So make sure you're never competing. When you are delivering complicated information, and okay, this was what I was going to say. I lost my train of thought for a second. The other thing that people will ask is if a pointer, like the light pointer, is a good way of directing people on slides. I say, sure, yes, use a laser pointer if you've practiced with it. If you have practiced pointing to where you need the audience to look on that slide, because I can't tell you how many times I've also watched presentations where someone has used the laser pointer, they're nervous, they're trying to convey their message while showing the audience where to look at the same time. And so it can look like a cat toy when you're unconscious about how it's being used. So I say practice with that as you are practicing your slides. The third way we can also help orient our audience to each of the slides is through animation. So not bringing up one point at a time or one image at a time, one graph at a time. You get the point, so that we're building upon our message and people are seeing it as we are explaining it, rather than having it all on the slide at one time. You're helping them with that narrative by using animation. So those are some basic best practices for how to present complicated data and slides, and then also just ways of going about building your presentation and what to be prioritizing when you are building that presentation. So I just spoke for about 10 minutes on presenting slides. And if anyone has questions, and thank you, Tina, for being here, please feel free to put those in the comments. I am here every first Monday at noon for the Speakers Lounge, where I will have a particular topic that I will focus on to help you be a better, more confident, dynamic, credible speaker, because we are being called on a regular basis to be speaking, especially if you're an entrepreneur or solopreneur and you have your own brand. You are probably speaking quite a bit, whether that be on a podcast, whether that be in a conference room, on stages, in networking events. You are being called to use your voice. And so what's important is that you start to form your point of view. You start to share your expertise. You start to form what makes you beautifully, uniquely you, that spark that you have that nobody else has. No matter how many coaches or consultants or entrepreneurs do what you do, they don't do it the way that you do it. And so it's important that you get to find ways to develop that spark, that uniqueness, and your voice. So please come on Mondays, noon, mark your calendars for the first Monday of every month. I will be here because I truly believe that it's important that more people start using their voices and sharing their stories. And thank you, Tina, for saying that you love the Speakers Lounge. I appreciate that. I appreciate my cheerleaders. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So this week I'm excited because I get to coach a lot of folks from Amazon AWS for their conference that's coming up, the reInvent conference that's coming up at the end of the month. And so they do get to present more technical slides and architecture ones. So, oh, I hope my microphone's working. I think it just kind of, y'all can hear me. All right. Tina is a teacher's pet. Jean, can you hear me? Because I think my mic just went out. Go ahead and let me know. Or Tina, give me a thumbs up. Or you're probably just going, oh, Meredith's lips are moving right now and I can't hear anything she's saying. I hope y'all can hear me. It looks like you can. Okay. So what was I saying? I don't even remember. This is the other thing I want to share is I'm back. Thank you, Tina. I appreciate that. Technology is really great when it works. And it's really funny how I'm always talking to my clients about make sure your tech is set up and that you have tested it before you get on calls. And it's funny because usually I'm pretty good. Like I want to say like 85% of the time, I always do that. I check my tech as well because I don't want things to go wrong when I'm working with clients. But the last two speaker lounges, actually the last 3 LinkedIn lives that I've done, there's been some odd technical difficulty. So I appreciate people dealing with me. And even today, I tried to get my green screen to work and it's not. That's why you can see the green behind my hair because I couldn't get it to match with my virtual background. So with that said, there's always something. You're human. We do the best that we can. And the best thing you can do is not apologize for these things. You just got to move on, moving and grooving. And it was glorious because Mike was there. So thank you, Mike. Yeah, we had one of my Confidently Speaking members, Mark, was in the room and a bunch of people came into Restream, which is the platform that I use to go live through. It's like another platform like StreamYard. And all of the guests who were watching came into Restream somehow. And I pivoted and Mike got to be on stage with us. And we had a lovely conversation. So you just never know what's going to be thrown at you. You just have to yes and it and pivot. Uh, so yes, I'm just going to repeat just like a little refresh here. I'm here every Monday, first Monday of the month to do a speaker's lounge. And if you have questions today, I'm talking about visuals in presenting and how to use visuals as a presenter. And we hear a lot about the death of PowerPoint. We hear a lot about, some people have really strong opinions, like don't use visuals at all. But that's not the reality for a lot of us, especially for those of you who work for organizations. You need to present visuals. For those of you who are your own boss and you're an entrepreneur, solopreneur, and you get to use visuals or choose to use visuals, there are ways that we can do it where it's going to enhance our message, and there are ways that we can use visuals where it's going to compete with our message. So I always invite people to really take a step back, put yourself in the shoes of the audience, and ask yourself the question, if I was in the audience and I was watching this presentation, would this visual be necessary? Is it supporting my message? Is it supporting my key takeaways? Is it supporting that end in mind? And if the answer is no, then figure out where you can do some editing. There's also a wonderful resource that I like that I've been using for years, which is Presentation Zen by Gar Reynolds. This is a really incredible resource for how to look at visuals and how to simplify them in the best way possible. And we're not all designers, and I get that. And we do have these wonderful resources like Canva. And now there's a lot of AI resources like Beautiful AI and so forth that are coming out. But you can still hire somebody to help you if you really have one of those high stakes presentations and you want to use those visuals to enhance your message. Hire a pro, get someone to collaborate with you. I feel like collaboration, especially as a solopreneur, is a wonderful way to go. And it's really going to help you stand out as well in that way of showing up in a more unique and grounded way, if you will, intentional way, I think is the word I'm looking for. So use those resources that are around you. And the thing that's so beautiful about LinkedIn is that we get to form these communities. So who's your little community that you're forming that's going to help lift you up, make you look good? Because you want to look good, right? We all do. It's the face of our brand. So take a little TLC and give your brand a little TLC. So with the visuals, what I talked about earlier on at the beginning of this 30 minutes of time that I'm spending with you was I was talking about how to intentionally deliver slides as well. The slides, the visuals should not be second thought, and that you should also be thinking about those transitions in between slides. How are you moving from one slide to the next? Meaning, how are you setting your audience up for what they're about to see? How are you orienting them to what they are seeing? And what are you doing so that you are not competing with the visuals? Because when you compete with the visuals, it's very difficult for your audience to retain any of the information that you are sharing. And I would imagine that your objective is to either get your audience to do something, whether that be take action and be inspired by something, take action and call you, take action and go out and do further research. Whatever that is, we need to make sure that we are showing up in the best way possible. Your visuals are a part of your presentation just as much as each scene in a play is a part of the storytelling. And when you do a transition from one scene to the next, it needs to matter, because if it doesn't matter, then you risk losing your audience. And when I go see plays, for example, the best plays are when they can find creative ways to transition from one scene to the next scene. It's not just a blackout and then lights up, blackout, lights up. I can't tell you how many times I've watched a blackout and then it takes what feels like forever for the lights to come back up again. That disrupts the experience. So what I'm inviting you to do, using that as an analogy, watching a play, for you and your presentation, I want you to think about How are you creating an experience for your audience? How are you being intentional? How are you uh, showing this in a way that is more performative? Because a presentation isn't just a presentation, it is a type of performance. And so you are creating a composition for your audience. Be mindful of that. And your visuals are very much a part of that storytelling. So those are some feelings that I have towards it. And I'm curious if anyone has a question. Mike, Tina, Jean, if you're still watching, if you have any questions about visuals, it doesn't even have to be a question. It could be an observation that you've had or what's worked for you. Please feel free to share that in the comments, because whatever experiences other people have, your expertise is indefinitely going to help somebody else. And I love it when we can all help each other out, when we can lift each other up, when we can share our experiences and our failures with each other so that we can all be better and do better as entrepreneurs and people who are working with an organization. All right. So here's another thing I'm going to say, which is, if you ever get a chance to do like a LinkedIn live, like I'm doing right now, or a TikTok live for 30 minutes, which I should be putting this on TikTok right now as well, or even an Instagram live, you should do it by yourself, solo. It's a totally different muscle. Okay. So Jean, thank you. I'm finding that the audience is more receptive to me describing something rather than using visuals on a PowerPoint. Yeah, I am a big fan of, if you don't need the visuals, then don't use the visuals. If you can tell a story that people are going to remember and give them those details that are relatable and insert the feelings and the emotions so that we are developing that sense of empathy with our audience, that is golden. So I appreciate you putting that in there. And Tina, I just found out that the place I'm presenting at this week doesn't provide presentation equipment, so I'm bringing my projector, but I don't have a screen. What do you do? Well, Tina, my first question would be, do you absolutely need your slides? And if the answer is no, and it's more of, I just need them to cue me for what's next, then I say, ditch the slides, and it's a-okay to make index cards and just put what they need to know as your teaser at the top of that index card. You don't have to write your whole entire script on the index card. Just put a cue. That's it. That's all you need. So hopefully that will help you. You have some great visuals though, because I got to see them. But I would say if you don't have the slide, don't give yourself more work than you need to if you can prevent that. Hope that answers your question, Tina. And I'm happy to talk to you about that a little bit more if you want to. And any other questions from people, or any other words of wisdom that you would like to share with the LinkedIn community? And we're also in YouTube and Facebook as well. And I'm Meridith. I'm your public speaking go-to. I am here every first Monday of the month at noon Eastern time to share with you, my audience, public speaking tips. And every month I'm going to have a new theme. This month it happens to be presenting with visuals. And so I don't have any visuals. I'm just doing this all off the cuff. I'm talking at you for 30 minutes straight. And that could be a theme in itself. How do you hold a space for more than 30 minutes and speak extemporaneously? That's that word always, that doesn't come out of my mouth very extemporaneously. How can you do that? It's a muscle, and it's something that I want to work on. So I'm here, I'm doing this, and I am beautifully showing up and mix and matching my words and all the good stuff. So if you have an idea for a theme, is there something that you want me to focus on in the coming months? Please put that in the comments. I'll also put a poll up here on LinkedIn and see what people are interested in hearing about, because really it's about me being here to better serve you. And please let me know. What do you want to hear about? If you're watching on YouTube, put it in the YouTube comments. Just let me know. Tina, you inspired me to create my own lounge, and it starts next week. The Co-op and Condo Lounge. Yes, Jean, when are you starting your lounge? Let's get this party started. Let's take over LinkedIn with our different industry lounges. Oh, how to incorporate humor in your talk. I think it's a really great subject. It's a really great subject because I feel that there's multiple ways that we can enter humor into a talk, and it's fun if we can find what we're the most comfortable with, and if not, then how do you practice that so you can get more comfortable? Jean is going to a lounge. Great. Right now, Jean, I mean, it's only 12:26, but yeah, I mean, it's 5 o'clock somewhere, as they say. But Jean, you should start your own lounge. I think you should, here on LinkedIn. Any other last questions or observations that you have about presenting visuals? Again, I've given I'll just reiterate a few things that I've said. One is, before visuals are even considered, you should consider who your audience is first, what that end in mind is, that objective for your presentation, what the key takeaways are. Once you've established those things, then ask the question, are visuals needed for this particular presentation? If you are someone who is presenting detailed information and you need to use the slides that are given to you, then it's really about how are you best communicating those slides to your audience so that you're not competing with them. You're orienting them and you're giving them very clear direction for where to look when that slide comes up. Don't compete. Cannot stress that enough. Otherwise, they're not going to remember anything that you say. And then the last thing I gave was a resource, Gar Reynolds. His name's spelled Garr, last name Reynolds, Reynolds, has a wonderful book called Presentation Zen. He has done several updates to that book too. So definitely recommend that. And you can always use me as a resource. So I have a TikTok channel at Grundy Coaching. You can find me there. I give almost daily tips. And then, of course, you can find me here on LinkedIn and YouTube and on Instagram. Those are the places that I live the most and where you can find me. And please, if you've been watching and you are on LinkedIn, I am a big fan of community and building community. So if you see people in the comments like Jean and Tina and Mike, follow each other if you're not doing that already. And let's all lean on each other so that we can be better and do better and use our voices and get our messages and our stories out there, because I truly believe that your stories are what will change the world and change lives. So thank you. And I just successfully talked for about 30 minutes straight, minus a couple minutes. But I always say leave them wanting more. So I'm going to end this thing just slightly early. And you are all amazing. Thank you for being here. Please come see me next month in December for the Speakers Lounge. Theme to be announced. Take care. Bye.